The Bulls didn't just lose a game last night. They lost Coby White and Josh Giddey to injury on top of already missing Zach Collins as well. We do not know as of right now the length of the time that Coby White or Josh Giddey could miss. We'll talk a little bit about that and Billy Donovan's comments on calling people out by name that need to step up with Josh Giddey and Coby White potentially missing time. We're also going to look at a potential trade of Trae Young, not to the Chicago Bulls, but how they could open up something for the Chicago Bulls to make a move with the Atlanta Hawks. We'll talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And then listen, Chicago Bulls lost by 35 points. It is what it is. It sucked. In no way should you lose by that many points, right? Now, when Josh Giddey and Coby White go down and you're missing so much of your not only on-ball creation, but also just your flat-out scoring, it's going to hurt you when it comes down to that, right? So now with Josh Giddey out with apparent hamstring injury, Coby White re-aggravated his calf injury as well. This now makes a triple threat of heartbreak for the Chicago Bulls between the loss, losing those two guys, and everything that stands out with it. Now, with that said, Billy Donovan called out specific players that he needs to step up with these guys being out. He said this after the game. I'm disappointed. I feel bad for guys when they can't play. But this is an opportunity. Can we grow from this and learn from what happened last time? Because we need to play better. I think I've said it before. Are our injuries impactful? Yes. But these guys are all pros, and they all want an opportunity to play. We've got to be a whole lot better. Our guard play in particular needs to get better. I know that with Josh and Coby, whatever their status may be for the future, I think there's enough for Ayo, Kevin Huerter, and Tre Jones to carry the load. So Billy Donovan right there is setting out the fact that he expects Ayo, Tre, and Kevin Huerter to step up with Josh Giddey and Coby White out. Does that mean that they're going to replace one-for-one what those guys do? No. We have nobody on the roster that's able to get a triple-double like Josh Giddey can. We have nobody who can score like Coby White can when he gets hot, but then again, Coby's been, hit or miss this season, especially from three. His scoring has been consistent for the most part because he's getting to the free throw line, but the three ball is not falling consistently for him. Same thing to be said to Kevin Huerter, even though he's impacting the game in multiple ways also. If Josh and Coby are going to miss some extended time, either one of them, and God forbid both of them, then it means that those guys are going to have to step up. Now, for what it's worth, we heard that Josh Giddey was walking around the locker room, didn't seem to be limping or anything like that. I do expect with Coby re-aggravating the initial calf injury that he had him miss the first month of the season, basically, or first few weeks of the season, I do expect us to be without Coby White for a while. I do think they're probably going to sit Coby a week or so just to make sure that it's not going to turn into anything else. But you do need these three guys to step up for you. And, Billy Donovan called out the right three guys to do it. Tre, because of his ability to pass and to be the actual point guard. He's not the scorer that Josh Giddey is, even though we've seen Tre Jones put in some work scoring before, right? But him now, he's going to step into that starting point guard role, and we're going to need Tre to be the player that he is. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's a really good passer. He can thread the needle there. He's not quite the open shot creator that Josh Giddey is. But listen, Tre Jones on the season, averaging 12 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds on 51% shooting from the field. We're going to need all of that. He's not the willing three-point shooter that Josh Giddey is. He's going to pass up some of those, but we're going to need that. Ayo is having a career year for Ayo Dosunmu. Efficiency across the board for Ayo. And Ayo's now going to step into a role, I think, with the Bulls with Coby White being out. They're actually going to need more Illinois Ayo Dosunmu, where we're going to need him to score a lot. We're going to need Ayo to score. He's averaging 14 points per game on the season. Before his injury, he was closer to 15 points per game, but he's shooting the ball 50% from the field, 44% from three, while chipping in 3 assists and basically 3 rebounds per game. Ayo's going to have to step up as a scorer. So is Kevin Huerter. So you're going to need these guys to step up tremendously for the Bulls over this stretch with these guys being out because they are the next up, and that's what you have to have, the next man up mentality. Now, I don't expect the Bulls to look the same. The play is going to have to change a little bit. I actually do hope with this much change that maybe you do think about as well. If you're going to start Ayo Dosunmu with his two-way ability, I would actually love to see Modest move to the 3 and Jalen Smith get an opportunity to start at the 4. But that's probably not going to happen with Zach Collins also out, which adds another wrinkle to this. And I think Zach Collins is a lot more important to the Chicago Bulls than people give him credit for. I know he's not, the stat sheet stuff or anything like that, but you look at playing the game of basketball and how he gives that two-way play at the big position, I think that the Bulls could be missing 3 very important players to the roster. And here we go again. After getting back healthy and having the first, a handful of games of having full health for the Chicago Bulls minus Noah Essengay, the Bulls find themselves right back potentially and missing some key parts of this team. And we'll see. Billy Donovan talked about it as well as far as the injuries, right? And he was asked about the pace of play and how that contributes to injuries. Steve Kerr was asked the same thing, but Billy Donovan said this: I do think it's a factor. One is that more possessions there are, the more opportunities for collision. And we consider contact injuries and certainly the number of minutes at the pace and speed of the game probably led to some of the soft tissue injuries. So I think it's a fair statement. And when you look at this, the Bulls players that have the ball the most are the ones that have been getting hurt the most. Right now, Zach Collins was a before the season thing. Coby White was a before the season thing too, but even look at when he aggravated the other calf, right? He's one of the highest usage rate players. Josh Giddey is one of the highest usage rate players. And so you run into those guys where those guys are going to be the one that actually get hurt the most. And it is something to look at, right? When you look at the players for the Chicago Bulls that have had major, I won't say major injuries, but have missed some significant time this season: Josh Giddey, Coby White, Nikola Vucevic, Ayo Dosunmu. I mean, let's be clear here, right? Now, we know that Josh Giddey, the offensive system revolves around Josh Giddey and his ability to play, make, and create open looks. Coby White is the scorer. Ayo Dosunmu was carrying the load as the Bulls' best two-way player, but also had a nice scoring load at the beginning of the season with Coby White out as well. These guys have all been hugely important to how in the brand of the Chicago Bulls that brand of basketball we play, and they all have missed some time. So it is something to be said there. I know common thought, especially with the history of the Bulls medical staff, is to blame the medical staff, and I can't blame you on that one. I can't blame you on that. I've said it before, though. I think for some people, they have an off expectation or understanding of really what the medical staff does for a team. It's really very, 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 it's not very much that a medical staff can do to avoid some of the soft tissue injuries. Now, it's just not, right? Medical staff doesn't even diagnose necessarily. They send off to diagnose. What the medical staff does do is come up with rehab plans, those type of things, get players back, conditioning, those type of things. And so there's some legitimate questions there. But I think overall, like, as long as the Bulls play this pace, and even with how deep they're going to the roster with 10 deep, it'd be interesting to watch out how the rest of this goes for the season for the Bulls and how much we do still run into injuries with some of our players that have the ball the most, because there is something that's there. And so, we'll see. But overall, to get back to the overarching topic, Coby White, Josh Giddey, Zach Collins, they all may miss some extended period of time. Billy Donovan's already said do not expect Zach Collins back this week. We didn't say that for sure he won't play, but the expectation is maybe for him not to be back this week with his big toe injury. Coby White is probably going to be reevaluated today in regards to how severe that calf strain is. Keep in mind, we now have the understanding that calf strains lead directly to Achilles, so that's going to be something there. And with the hamstring for Josh Giddey, it can be anywhere from, he's back fine now, he can play next game, to it could be a week or so, right? You just never know what's going to come out of it with hamstring injury. So, we'll see what happens there with this team. But, as soon as the Bulls season, like, it's always something, right? The Bulls get back to 500. They lose 2 games in a row. You lose players in the last 2 games as well. And now we're right back here. But the Bulls got to figure it out. And the thing that I think with this, too, is with Coby, the number of injuries that Coby has had this year, the amount of time, I should say, that Coby has missed this season already and is probably going to miss, going forward. I wonder if that makes Coby White and his agent have to come down off the $30 million asking price, right? Does it become from 30 more to like 27, 28, right? Does it come to that? Because you keep re-aggravating something, teams are going to use that to their advantage. And I wonder if the Bulls just go ahead and offer the 30, or if the Bulls do try to negotiate a little bit more, how that can end up working out for that. But we'll talk about that once we kind of have a better understanding on how much time Coby White can miss. But as it stands right now, expect some things to get a little tight here for the Bulls. And Billy Donovan has already called the players that he wants to step up. Let's see if they step up for this Bulls team. But moving on from that, I do want to move on from this. We had a report by Elias Schuster, who's now over at Sports Illustrated writing for the Chicago Bulls, and he talked about how the Bulls can use the Hawks potentially trading Trae Young to open up a door for them. And I actually, even though I'm not the highest on the player, right, and this is not the Bulls getting Trae Young, I'm going to read some of the article there, but he said this: to be absolutely clear, I do not foresee the Chicago Bulls making a run at Trae Young. That's not the argument I'm here to present. Specifically, after they signed Josh Giddey to a 4-year, $100 million offer, we agree with that. He did say this: instead, the reason I believe the news matters is because the potential influence it can have on the Bulls' own trade endeavors. While we have not received any word that Arturas and company intend to be sellers, there's no question that this remains a strong possibility. They have 7 players on expiring contracts, including multiple young guards who could bring back sizable returns. With that in mind, it's fair to wonder if Trae Young's availability could get in the way of the Bulls' own push to move White or Ayo Dosunmu. Now, let's start off this part, right? Trae Young being out in the market and having a opt-out in the offseason for the deal, teams are probably going to want to get him to go ahead and opt into that or go ahead and sign him to an extension after they trade for him, which is a possibility there, right? But I would say this: the flip side of this is that if teams are gearing up, this could expose who really wants a guard, right? Now, you guys know I'm not somebody who wants to see the Bulls trade Coby White. I do understand that it is a possibility, and I understand that it may be the right choice under certain circumstances. But I will say this: if you notice what the guard market is for Trae Young, that tells you which teams are legitimately in on moving for a guard. And then if it leaks out the offers that these teams make for Trae Young, that could then help with the asking price of Coby White. Now, no, I do not expect Coby White to garner the same type of interest as Trae Young. I just don't expect that to happen. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you can use that to gauge what the market is for a scoring guard, which Coby White is, and what you can try to ascertain to get back in a move for Coby White. And that's it, right? Now, Coby White, I think, does have upside there. I think he has maybe even more upside than Trae Young still because, listen, Trae Young's been on teams built around him. Kobe's never really been that, but also if you're making a move for Coby, you're probably already a contending team, and you may see him with playing off of better players, maybe even take his game a step further if you have better coaching, stuff like that. Ayo's a part of that also, so we'll see. I think also when you look at the fact that Trae Young has a $48 million contract next year that he can opt into, that also affects the amount of assets you can get back. So if you're the Chicago Bulls and you're trading a mid-sized contract in Coby White, maybe you can try to garner more of that, of a first-round pick or something back, right, in that case. So we'll see. I see that this is an opportunity where Arturas can maybe take advantage of it. Maybe even Arturas can be the third team in a trade, in an Atlanta Hawks trade. But that gets us to the next part of what's talked about here, right? And this one comes from Andrew Hanlon over at Pimpin' Ain't Easy. He talks about the Hawks and their openness to trading Zaccharie Risacher and how the Bulls could actually get in on those trade talks. And listen, if the Hawks make some supersized trade in which you're trading Trae Young, and let's say maybe a team isn't interested in Zaccharie Risacher, or let's say that the package that you get back from Trae Young further solidifies that the Hawks are in win now mode, and reportedly they are not as happy with the development and the steps that Zaccharie Risacher has taken so far, could the Bulls then pursue or try to get involved in a trade to get Zaccharie Risacher back? Now, Andrew Hanlon in this writes that, if the Hawks move Trae Young, maybe they want a guard like Coby White, maybe you can get Zaccharie Risacher back for Coby White, amongst some other things. And I get it. It's mending a lot of different rumors around to try to find where the Chicago Bulls can get themselves in on this at, right? Much like I said with trading Nikola Vucevic as an expiring for Jonathan Kuminga straight up, while I'm not the biggest on Kuminga at all, especially for this team, I can't be mad at you taking advantage of a player that clearly in Vooch that doesn't fit your system or doesn't fit your future, and then going out and getting a player in Kuminga that you can say, hey, let's take a look at what he brings for the rest of the season and see maybe if there's some long-term hope there. Zaccharie Risacher is a player that there's still tons of potential there. He's not even through his second year in the NBA yet, so you cannot count him out yet, I don't feel, as far as what he can be. Positions, there's some questions about what his long-term position is going to be. Is he going to be wing? Is he going to be forward? Is he going to be undersized center? And there's some questions there. Right now, Risacher has actually maybe even taken a step back. Last year, he averaged 12 points per game. This year, he's averaging 10 points per game. He's shooting the ball about the same from the field and about the same from three. His shot attempts have gone down, one shot attempt, which could equate for the 2-point difference in his shots. But there's no doubt that he hasn't really taken a step up. He's not a great rebounder, right? And so is that the level of move that would make some sense if the Bulls are moving on from Coby? I talked about before how I don't like the concept of trading Coby for Jonathan Isaac and 2 second-round picks. If we're going to move Coby, I want something now or a young, promising piece. Would a former number 1 overall pick be that? Yeah, he's 20 years old, and by the nature of that, you can't count out what he's going to develop into. Now, I will say this. I don't feel as confident in what Risacher is going to turn into, though. That's just my personal opinion on it. He's not a great three-point shooter. He's not a physical big to where you can play him as an undersized 4. And then because we already have Noah Essengate here, I don't know if that necessarily plays out the best as far as the allocation of assets and the positions that you have. Now, let's say it all works out. Let's say it works out in your forward combo for the next few years is Modest, Risacher, and Noah Essengate. Let's say that in a year or two, that's your guys. You're looking at those guys as your 3-forward rotation. Okay, cool, I guess, right? He's on a rookie scale deal. I can't be mad at that at all. But I just have some questions on if that's the best you can get for Coby. Is it better to just keep Coby, right? And that's a question here. Again, I get it that AK hasn't always been the most forward-thinking GM to make moves like this. I want to be clear there. He is not. And Risacher was a top pick in an underwhelming draft class for the most part, where Stephen Castle should have been one of the best players from that draft. Reed Shepherd is definitely one of the best players from the draft with how he's shooting this year, and Modest Buzelis. Risacher has been a disappointment, and he's disappointing the Hawks for a number of reasons. They lucked in and got the number 1 overall pick in a time where they were a playing team, and that pick hasn't worked out. But I will say this, is it low risk to try to take, or does it remind people too much of P. Will? Right? Is that the question that you're running into here? He's 20 years old, and you can always get caught up in the potential of a 20-year-old player, but what is he going to actually be in reality? There's some position concerns with Risacher, all those type of things, and so I don't know, right? He has the potential to be a 3-and-D forward, make no mistake about that, and that is the type of player archetype that Arturas Karnisovas has loved in the past, but I just don't know if that is the right, like, is it just the P. Will thing all over again? And that is a legitimate question that I think you have to ask. Now, P. Will's problem wasn't skill set, it was mindset, right? And so with Risacher's skill set, can you convince yourself is the mindset there? I don't know. I mean, you got a player that Modest Buzelis literally has called out as trying to dodge him since they were both drafted. So you have that part of it too as well, right? So listen, I love Andrew Hanlon. Between putting together Elias Schuster and Andrew Hanlon's reporting on the Bulls and being linked to the Hawks and a potential Hawks deal, I wouldn't mind it, right? And I mean, if you can get it done without Coby, if you can find a way to get involved as the third team and use some of your veterans and expiring contracts, and the Hawks go into trading Trae Young, and you can walk away with that with Zaccharie Risacher, I'm not mad at that at all, right? It just comes I don't know if I want to give up Coby for that. I'd be willing to give up almost all of our expirings to take a look at that. But then again, does that set the Bulls back? And we know that with AK, he doesn't like taking steps back at any. He likes moving forward. So it's just a thought process. But even taking out the Risacher part, if the Bulls, with all the expirings that we have, can get involved in a trade like the magnitude of Trae Young, who has an almost $50 million contract, that is the way that you use your expirings, especially if you identified some of these players as ones that aren't part of your long-term future. I think that is what you have to do. You owe it to yourself to take advantage of those spots and in those opportunities where you can. We just got to see if the Bulls are going to do it. But with this injury situation, I do think that could definitely affect Coby White's trade market, to where teams could very well try to undersell the Chicago Bulls because of the way that Coby White has been injured this season. And that's something you also have to look out for as well. And I think that, we'll see how it shakes out on the other side of it. We'll see how it goes. I don't have my biggest hopes for AK to do something unexpected because it's AK. He hasn't done that a lot since he's been here with the Chicago Bulls. But, things at some point, you may have to take a shot at something. And with the Bulls being more open to trading Coby than ever before, maybe this is the time where we see something that we don't expect. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. We got one voicemail I want to get into today, just one. And this one is from Sean.
Hey, Haize, I just started watching your videos, or your video yesterday of the Bulls being sellers at the deadline. Question, if we sell off Coby White, and sell off these players just to get draft capital, do you think at that point Modest would become a second option to Josh Giddey? Or who do you think the second option would be on the team? Thanks.
Would Modest become the second option if Coby White is traded? I mean, it seems like maybe that's a possibility. I won't say for sure because I think Ayo, depending on what happens with Ayo, he can step into that starting lineup and take more of the scoring load as well. But you would think that if you trade Coby White as your scorer, it does mean that maybe you see something in Modest that has made you feel confident that he's ready for that, or the Bulls are just like, hey, the rest of the season, we're going to see what Modest can really do when he's prioritized, and then that can help inform us on what we're going to do in this offseason where we have tons of flexibility. So I think there's a possibility of it. I don't know how successful he'll be in that or not. Modest can be inconsistent at times. I know a lot of people are ready to see Modest Buzelis get that opportunity to get 15, 16 shots per game and to see how he develops as a scorer at that point in time, and we'll see. Again, I'm not somebody who wants to see Coby White traded. I do understand that it can happen. And the byproduct of that could be Modest, a player like Modest getting more shots and more opportunities for sure. So we'll see. But all right, y'all, that's going to do it for today's episode. We've officially are in the part of the season where every decision matters and is magnified that much more. Every injury matters. Every rumor suddenly starts to feel more real for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know what you guys think. Should the Bulls be more aggressive? Should they sell? Should they wait? Should they hold them? Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you're not subscribed, you can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.